1990 census was taken, there were 850,000 Japanese Americans in the United States. By the time of the 2000 census, that number had fallen to around 800,000. And experts say that the number of Japanese Americans in the United States has been declining slowly but steadily for decades. Perhaps we don't notice the trend as much in California or in Hawaii because 2/3 of all Japanese Americans live in these two states. But the trend lines are there. Another important factor is intermarriage. According to one study, less than 2% of the Issei married non-Japanese, and only 4% of the Nisei married non-Japanese. By the time the Sansei got married, somewhere between 40 and 60% married non-Japanese. So within another generation, it will be increasingly harder to identify Japanese Americans in strictly racial terms. The Japanese names will survive. The Yamamotos, the Katos, the Satos, the Watanabes. But the people with those names might not hold the same bond nor the same feeling for Japan that we do. And they won't look like me, just like there are Americans with German or Italian or Polish names who don't feel any special personal connection to those countries. It wasn't too long ago when observers were saying that relations between the United States and Japan have never been better. And when you compare it to the days when we were fighting over trade and investment barriers, excuse me. The last thing I want to do is get the Vice President's podium wet. And so when you compare it to the days when we were fighting over trade and investment barriers and trying to get Japan to step up its defense efforts, things do seem to be on an even keel today. But no relationship can stay on cruise control or autopilot. And that's because the world around us is changing, and we have to adjust accordingly. In the old days, Japan was the only game in town in Asia, and the U.S.-Japan military alliance was the linchpin of Asian security. Japan's economy used to dominate Asia, and the other Asian economies looked to Japan as a role model. But today the situation has changed, and China has now passed Japan to become the world's second largest economy. China already has the world's largest foreign currency reserves. Japan's per capita income used to be number 1 in the world, but today it has fallen to number 19. And as Japan's society continues to age and its working population declines, both its savings and savings rates are declining. And the world has never seen a situation in Asia where both Japan and China are strong, powerful nations at the same time. But China is not Asia, and Asia is not China. Korean electronics and automobile companies are now giving Japan a run for their money. India is ascendant. The 10 nations of ASEAN, Southeast Asia, have a combined GDP of over $1 trillion. And in short, the whole Asian environment is changing. So how will the U.S.-Japan alliance and our partnership adapt? The new government of Japan says that it wants to strengthen its ties to the rest of Asia and to seek a better balance in its relationship with the United States. Personally, I believe that if Japan reaches out to the rest of Asia, from China to India, from Korea to South and Southeast Asia, it is good for Japan, it is good for Asia, and it will be good for the United States. As for Japan's dealings with the United States, administration officials already have said that we are willing to talk to our Japanese allies about a whole range of issues as equal partners. Now, this is the 50th anniversary of our security treaty with Japan, but there is more to our relationship than our military connection. There has been little discussion in recent years about the future of our economic relationship and what we can do to expand our business ties and our technological cooperation. And we should be thinking about what we can do to strengthen our cooperation on foreign policy, on global economic development, on the environment, on energy, and on world health. We should be talking about how we can reverse the decline in our cultural and intellectual exchanges and the decreasing number of Japanese and American students who study in each other's countries. To build a relationship for the future, we need to be talking about all of these things, about all the aspects of our relationship. And these discussions should include a broad cross-section of society in both of our countries. When you live inside the Beltway, as I do, it is easy to think that the relationship between any two countries is what their governments do with each other. But the government-to-government relationship is just one part of the U.S.-Japan relationship. Because we are both democracies, because we are the #1 and #3 economies in the world, because we basically trust each other, because we are both cultural and technological powerhouses, we cannot leave out the people. Government is just the tip of the iceberg. It is the American and the Japanese people who are the real basis of this relationship, and it is that base that we must build upon in the months and the years ahead. Therefore, when we look to the future, it should not just be government officials or a handful of wise men who chart the path. With all of these changes taking place, the U.S.-Japan Council has a window of opportunity and perhaps even a necessity right now to begin a broad discussion about the future of U.S.-Japan relations, to involve business leaders, academicians, think tankers, and leaders of civil society. I hope that younger Americans and Japanese can be involved in this discussion. There is a new generation of American scholars who have specialized in Japan, and many young Americans who have lived and worked in Japan as JETs, as students, or in business. If we are thinking about the future, then we need to include these future leaders, those young Americans who have participated in the Japanese American leadership delegation visits to Japan should be a part of this effort. And so it is my hope that our friends in Japan, throughout business, government, academia, and society, will engage in this common effort. And it is my hope that on Japan's side, it will involve the younger generation as well, to talk broadly about Japan's place in Asia and the world and its engagement. And so I think as we look to the future, we must take advantage of the situation as it appears with us now to be able to chart a new course. Let me make, if I might, a slight update of Mike Mansfield's famous statement that Senator Inoue and Tom Inoue and others have quoted. This can once again become the most important bilateral relationship in the world, bar none. Thank you very much.